Welcome to the first episode of the Fractal Blueprint. In this new series, we're diving into a totally different way to think about ourselves. You see, for way too long, a lot of us have been stuck asking, what's wrong with me? But what if that's the wrong question entirely? Today, we're going to ask a new one. How am I built? You know this cloud of words, right? ADHD, anxiety, burnout. They're the labels that we, or maybe other people, have slapped on to try and make sense of what's going on inside. Or even the really hurtful ones, like lazy or too sensitive. This is the language we've been given for our struggles, but honestly, it usually just creates more confusion. And this is the question that changes everything. What if all those labels aren't actually signs that something is wrong with you? What if you're not some broken machine that needs fixing, but a highly specialized system that just came without the user's manual? To even begin to answer that, we've got to look at the very framework we're using to think about our own minds. And it turns out the map most of us were handed is, well, it's been sending us in circles. Okay, so on one side, you've got the framework we all know, pathology. Its main question is, what's broken? It looks at everything through the lens of disorder. But on the other side, we have the architecture framework, and it asks a completely different question. How am I built? This one simple shift reframes everything from flaws into features, and that changes the entire game. So let's throw out that old map and start exploring this new one, the mind's blueprint. We're going to borrow some language from computer science here, not to sound cold or robotic, but because it gives us a really precise and actually a really compassionate way to talk about our own design. Here is the core idea. Your mind is not some big unsolvable mystery. It's a system. A really complex and amazing one, but a system nonetheless. And just like computer hardware, different minds have different builds, each with its own unique blueprint. Figuring out your build is step one to finally learning how to run your own system effectively. So what are the building blocks of this blueprint? Let's break down the core components, the hardware, if you will. And this is so important. These aren't rigid boxes to stuff yourself into. Think of them more like sliders on a control panel. They all combine to create your unique profile. First up, we've got the processor, or CPU. This is basically your mind's engine. It's not about what you're thinking about, but the fundamental way that you think. It's your core operational logic. So on one end of the spectrum, you've got a high CPU build. This thing is a parallel processor. It's like a supercomputer that's built to juggle and synthesize tons of different streams of information all at once. It just thrives on complexity. Then you've got the low CPU, or sequential build. This is a powerful workhorse designed for deep, single-minded, linear focus. It thrives on order. Next is memory, or RAM. Now, we're not talking about your deep-seated childhood memories here. Think of this more like your computer's RAM. It's your mind's temporary scratch pad, the buffer for holding on to static info right now, like a shopping list, a new person's name, or where you literally just put your phone down. A high RAM build is amazing at holding lots of that linear data. You know, that person who can remember pages of instructions without breaking a sweat. A low RAM build, on the other hand, has a really small buffer. It doesn't actually store the whole memory file. Instead, it saves a tiny little seed of the data and uses its powerful processor to kind of reconstruct or render the full memory on the fly whenever it's needed. Now we get to a really cool one, the signal source, or BIOS. Forget the techie name for a second. This is your system's deepest, most fundamental layer. It's your direct line to the raw, nonverbal data streaming in from your nervous system. You know it as your gut feeling, your intuition. It's that stuff you just know before you even have the words for it. Every system also has its own internal system clock. This is your natural speed, your tempo. Are you one of those people who feels like the rest of the world is just moving in slow motion? You probably have a fast internal clock. Or do you constantly feel rushed, like you're always trying to catch up? That might be a slow internal clock. It dictates your whole rhythm. And finally, there's the state of that BIOS itself, its overall health. A healthy BIOS is clear, aligned, and efficient. But things like trauma can act like a computer virus, installing what you could call corrupted files or malware. That sounds harsh, but it's not a moral judgment. It's just a way of describing a survival program, like an inner critic, that gets stuck in a loop and starts attacking the system it's supposed to protect. So now we have all these different components, but here's the absolute most important piece of this whole puzzle. You can't be maxed out on everything. None of this exists in a vacuum. It all operates under a fundamental law of physics, the energetic trade-off. Let's see what that actually looks like. Okay, this right here, This is probably the most important principle in this entire explainer. It's the law of energetic trade-offs. Your mind has a finite energy budget, period. So if you're going to build a cowering strength in one area, like a super powerful high-performance CPU, you have to pay for that energy. And you pay for it by pulling resources away from some other function, like, for example, your RAM. And this is the core law of nature for our minds. A struggle isn't some random weakness. It's the totally predictable result of a highly specialized system being in an environment that demands the very function it had to trade away. Your greatest strengths and your biggest challenges are quite literally two sides of the exact same architectural coin. So, what's the point of all this theory? Well, this is where it stops being theory and becomes an incredibly practical toolkit. Because understanding your own unique architecture is the key to finally writing your own personalized user's manual. Look at this. This is where it all just clicks into place. Take a symptom like being forgetful. In that old pathology framework, we'd call that a broken memory. But from the architectural view, it's just a feature of a low RAM build. It's not broken at all. And once you know that, you stop trying to fight your own nature, and you can start building systems that actually work with it. So a mind with low RAM isn't forgetful. It's just designed to outsource its memory. It needs an external system like a good notebook or an app to act as its external RAM. A high CPU mind isn't chaotic. It's a high-performance engine that gets stressed out and acts up when it isn't being fed complex, interesting problems to solve. And that corrupted program in your BIOS? That's not the real you. It's just some old code that can be found, understood, and even rewritten. This framework gives us a map to all kinds of different cognitive builds, and it lets us start asking some really fascinating new questions. Questions like, what happens when you combine some of these components at their most extreme levels? What does one of the most powerful and probably one of the most misunderstood builds actually feel like to live in? Well, next time, we're going to do a deep dive into that exact architecture. The high CPU, low RAM mind. We're going to explore its incredible strengths, the unique pressures it lives under, and the absolutely extraordinary insights it can offer all of us. I'll see you then.